Welcome to the Brothers Dim. I don't like my energy. Welcome to the...
Wait, let me go. All right. Welcome to the Brothers Dim, episode 4. We're going to get into aliens, the new evidence that's out about them, and some other conspiracy theories.
But first, we just wanted to reflect on some of the previous conversations. So wasn't there something... What did you want to talk about?
So, all right, to get going, I listened to the last episode, which was on, I guess, simulated thinking. And you made a good analogy to people that have a brick house in their head, as opposed to somebody like me or you that have just fog in their head. AKA, we're kind of not sure about stuff. We're figuring it out. We're confused. And these people with brick houses have kind of polished, solidified concepts that, you know, make a nice structure. So it's a little easier for them to get by, I guess. Anyway, so after I listened to the episode, and it was really late. It was like after, I'm listening to it, and it was almost midnight. And then I came home, went to bed, and I had stress dreams and this nightmare. And the stress dream was the classic me on stage, performing a play, and I don't know the lines. I don't know what to say, what's going on. In this particular dream, it was like I was on stage with Mom, and then Dad and Chris were in the audience. It was a really weird dream. So after thinking about it after I woke up, I think it was because I listened to the podcast. And while I'm listening to the podcast, I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm saying now. I don't know what my points are. And in this dream, it was all chaotic, and Dad's leaving the audience. Chris is like talking. I'm like, dude, we're doing a play. You can't talk during the show. And it's a true stress dream. Like, it was very uncomfortable. And then I pick up the script. And in this dream, so I pick up the script, and I'm like, oh, I can still do the play. I'll just read it instead of just pretending that I know that I know the lines or whatever, trying to get by it.
Well, yeah, I think we will continually earn the title, The Brothers Dim, coming to this every week without really having a point, without having anything thought out. And so it's really just a personal journey, like how we are experiencing things as maybe not super intelligent people, but we're still alive and trying to figure out the world.
And it's nice not to have it like all wrapped up in a bow tie. Like if you want to get the news or something, like you can listen to whichever you want. You could listen to Trevor Noah, Anderson Cooper, or you could listen to, on the other side, Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson. And if you listen to all of those, they're all going to kind of be filtering through the same, you're going to kind of get the same stuff from each of them, because they're going to be filtering it through their, it's their show. It's about politics. So they're doing the research for you, and they're kind of spitting out the important nuggets to you.
They are definitely filtering with a purpose. They are trying to produce a nugget of information to make you think about something in a certain way. Like it's all going through their political filter, where they definitely lean into whatever ideology they lean into. Like of the people you mentioned, I don't know that any of them are loose or like...
They're overconfident. They're too sure of themselves.
Yes, they're very confident. They definitely live in a house where everything is well structured and well thought out. I sort of don't trust any of them. Like you can just hear how much they're begging you to think about something a certain way. And I much prefer people sort of in the middle, or people who are able to talk to all sides, where it's not always a debate where they have to prove the other side wrong. I think it always helps if someone can hear what you're saying and reflect it back to you in their own words, like coming from their own point of view. I don't know. I feel like that's when conversation is actually progressing, and you're not just repeating things verbatim or just waiting for your turn to talk. Like if you can actually hear what the other person says,
right,
and put your own spin on it, it sort of means you're actually having a conversation.
Yeah. And with that fog analogy, like there's definitely some points that I have that I've thought about, stronger beliefs, where if somebody brings it up, I'm like, oh, I kind of feel, I have some certainty that I feel this way. And this happens to me over and over. And sometimes in that moment, I'm making a good point, and then it doesn't get stored. Like, I don't have a brick house where it doesn't stay there. It's just gone. And then the next time, maybe it'll come back in a slightly different way. And I think that's having to do with, just the fact that I don't have that brick house, that I'm constantly kind of changing my ideals and opinions.
This is very specific to me, but like I definitely experience this evaporation of my mind every day where nothing stays put. Like, I'm hearing a bunch of stuff and then it just disappears. And the best way I have to retain knowledge is that it will be this like literally sort of a cloudy image in my mind of almost a diagram, or I'm thinking about a concept visually, where I'm sort of almost like a symbolically or whatever, and I will draw the idea out like as a symbol or like a metaphorical painting almost of this concept of like the way I'm thinking about something. And so there's no words. It's just like an image of a cloud and then a different colored cloud that sort of represents maybe an epiphany that I've sort of had. And then later, if I look at that drawing, I will remember the epiphany, right? And for me, that works because it's not just a bunch of words. It's also remembering the feeling, because like in a drawing, you can sort of capture just, a more metaphorical version of it or a more emotional version, right? Like I'll use jagged lines to represent a certain feeling or a certain color, and that will help me remember things. So I have a bunch of drawings in my phone of concepts that I've decided to draw.
I think that's better, because in my phone is a lot of voice memos. Whenever I go through something and I have all these epiphanies or realizations at once, kind of breakthroughs in my own life or psyche, I'll talk to my phone on a note or on the voice memo, and it helps for me to get it out and know that it's captured, because I'm so afraid that it's all going to go away and this thing that's so important to me is gone forever. So I'll talk for an hour, making a voice memo, and I have like, I don't know, 50 or 100 or more in my phone. On basically each one, I'll put, asterisks next to this one. This one's super important. Listen to this every day. It'll remind you of all these important things that you've realized. I don't listen to any of them back, almost ever. But your images are probably better because you don't have like a 10-hour-long voice memos that are like me mumbling about some stupid point that probably doesn't even matter that much.
Yes, it's really easy for me to glance at an image and remember what I was thinking. I've also tried the voice memo thing, and I found I will literally never hear it again. Like, there's almost no reason to record it. Like, other than you're taking the time to say these things out loud, but I will never listen back. And if you really did record for an hour, when the fuck do you have time to go listen to yourself mumble about something for an hour, other than when you're doing a podcast for everyone else to listen to?
That's what artists do, is like, instead of an hour-long voice memo, you can boil it down into a painting or a movie or whatever, something that you channel this message or whatever into something else. Because I also have a very smart friend that I talk to, and he always comes up with weird analogies for, like, I might make a point and he'll be like, oh yeah, it's like you brought all the hot dogs to the beach and all your friends wanted them, or like then they told you what to do with them. I'm like, yeah, that one I'm going to remember way more than me just kind of bumbling and, trying to make my point just by speaking dumb words.
I think metaphors are extremely important. I think it's a very human thing. Like we've talked about storytelling. I think it is the way that we understand the world, and it sort of ties into our topic today. We'll be talking about UFOs, but let's talk a little bit about metaphor and conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories, this is something that I don't actually know a lot about. Like, I have not traveled down these rabbit holes. Like, have you? Like, have you actually thought deeply about any of the big conspiracy theories?
Honestly, no. To any point of actually, I'll try and think of one, But because right now I'm probably just thinking of the big ones like Sasquatch and UFOs, and I know those are no's for me. There's probably some other ones that I've gotten deeper into, but no, I'm going to just say no off the bat.
I think it's kind of similar to being really deep into your ideology or your political viewpoint, where you have to really travel down a rabbit hole for everything to sort of make sense. And so you have to be sort of an extreme person. Like there's this classic meme of Charlie Day from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and he's got the classic like whiteboard with a bunch of ideas, with a bunch of lines and, you know, pieces of yarn strung together and pictures representing all these different concepts, sort of tying them together. And he looks incredibly frazzled. And that's kind of our image of like conspiracy theorist nuts, is that they're in the process of losing their mind, because once you start making all these connections, it's sort of this never-ending web. And I think that's a good metaphor in itself. Like you just mentioned Tucker Carlson and Anderson Cooper and sort of the way they do the news. I think that the world is so complex. Like there are so many things on the whiteboard of reality. So you get to pick and choose the ones that will help explain your narrative and then tie them together in a specific way, make just the right kind of connections to tell a specific story. And that story will basically be true. But the problem is you can interpret all of these things in different ways. Like you can really kind of create any reality you want. And I think that's what we see a lot with the news or with different ideologies, where people just have a completely different interpretation of reality that is not compatible with other people's interpretation. But it might be that both of those interpretations make a kind of sense, like the connections that they're making make sense. The events that they're tying together all really happened, but they're just choosing to see a small selection of reality that tells the story they want to tell.
Yeah, and it looks like a very frustrating way to live, because I'm looking at the meme too, and he looks so tense, and with all the yarn and like the things, you know, strung out, it's got to be a very high-strung way to live, because he's so ready to complete the answer. Like he's like, I know that this goes here and it fits and everything works, and the goal is to complete the riddle or whatever.
Yeah, you're always one step away from solving the deep, profound mystery of reality. Like what's really going on? Who's really at the bottom of this? Just make one more connection and it's all going to make sense.
It's a stressful way to live. It's a tense way to live.
And whenever you see this, like in movies or like on TV, when you see someone has constructed one of these boards, that's a shorthand for this person is losing their mind, right? Like when you see that image, you know, oh, this character, they've taken off from reality and they're traveling to some new dimension in their mind.
Yeah. For a specific case, like if you have a murder and you create the board, that's kind of fine, because that's kind of you tracking all this, so you can step back, look at it and be like, all right, well, he was at the scene of the crime. All right, move this guy here. I feel like that's just organizational. But when you relate it to bigger ideas like life, beliefs, or stuff that's like way more abstract, that's when you're going to start to be in a, you know, just high-strung, stressful way of living, because you're going to try to connect these dots and you're seeking an answer that you're never going to find, but you're so sure and like jittery or whatever.
When you see detectives are organizing the information to make connections that make sense as they're trying to solve a crime, that seems like just good organization, right? But you could start there and then just keep making connections. Like, what if this suspect also, he worked at this corporation, and that corporation takes money from this entity, and that connects, like you could, if you just keep making connections, even that well-structured, simple organization can explode off into infinity and just chaos, right? And so that's the fine line of like, you can't let your mind explode into chaos, because that's the impression I get from conspiracy theorists, right? Like their minds are so open that their brains have exploded. I don't know. Have you found that when you find someone who believes in UFOs, they also believe in Bigfoot, and they also believe in the lizard people, and they also believe that we never went to the moon, and they also believe in ghosts, and like none of these things make sense together. They're not connected, but because you're open-minded about one is sort of, you're probably open to all these other crazy ideas.
Yeah, the healthy version is to either get it solved and be done with it, or at some point to let it go. Like if you can say, oh man, I guess to kind of get out of it. Like if you've put all these strings up, had all these ties, and it's just kind of not working out, if you can walk away from it and say, bummer, that feels like that'll be a healthier person, right? If you can just say, fuck man, didn't forget it. Maybe it'll hit me later.
I mean, I think you just landed on the conclusion of this entire discussion, and that the healthy move is to step away. Because, like, if you keep the obsession on forever, you just lose your mind. You're not going to come to a conclusion. It's always going to be kind of open. It's like religions or a lot of beliefs where it's like, maybe we're never going to know, and so you just have to be comfortable stepping away and accepting that you don't know for sure.
Yeah, and what makes him what's the type of person that doesn't want to let that go? Like there's probably some clinical psychiatric explanation to a degree of the type of person who will not, let these type of conspiracies go. They have to go until they solve it.
It's sort of like the opposite of Buddhism, or like, what would you call it? Mindfulness, or like one of these things that's just about letting go.
Yeah, that's basically either like Buddhists. Mindfulness is it all goes away, and all that is real and exists is right now. The words I'm saying to you, nothing else even factors in or matters, which is a good feeling to have when you're just right there in the moment, as opposed to you just need to know the end right now, or you need to find the conclusion.
Okay, well, here we go. Aliens and UFOs. When I was young, The X-Files was on, and that was my favorite TV show. Like I was saying before, I kind of want to believe, like Mulder, I would want to believe that there's something out there. I would hang out with my friends outside when we'd have like sleepovers, and we'd hang out in the meadow and kind of look up at the stars and hope we see a UFO. But while that was happening, I'm not sure I actually necessarily believed it. It's one of those things where I wanted to. It would be cool to see a UFO, but I didn't necessarily believe the stories that other people had told. Like, I didn't believe necessarily the abduction stories, or Area 51, that an alien crashed and they actually captured the craft or whatever. I didn't necessarily believe that was true, but I guess I kind of wanted to believe there was something out there.
Yeah, I mean, as a younger kid, now I'm thinking about it from an older perspective, but I definitely would want to believe in some kind of magic in the world, whatever you want to call it, aliens or this, something supernatural, like Lord of the Ringsy, or just something not of this world. I think that's a pretty, not childish, but a lot of kids, it's a natural ideas to want to believe in magic. We'll just call it that. So back then there was, I don't know if it was X-Files or if it was aliens or whatnot, but I definitely was like, man, there's got to be I'm going to find some crazy shit. And it probably really exists, like a real little alien or something. And I would really hope it would.
Yeah, I think that's the reason it stays in the zeitgeist, is maybe it's a want for there to be sort of magic. But specifically with aliens, I think it's like wanting there to be a bigger world out there. The world is not big enough, and it doesn't feel magical enough. And we as a planet, we're lonely, and we want there to be more. We want to talk to another being out there. Like, do you think that's sort of what's underneath that feeling?
I think so, yeah. It was scary. It would scare you if you watch the X-Files, they find another monster or, make contact. It's scary, but it's exciting. And you do, even though it's scary, wants to, I guess just believe that there's something beyond this. It's kind of escapism. Like, all right, this is all great, but as a kid, it's like, it's not enough. I hope there's more. I hope there's a realm to another portal. Like all the kids' book, it's like Chronicles to Narnia, Harry Potter. There's always a fucking door, or you run through a wall to another fucking cooler world. with wizards or little animals that talk. And that is something that almost all kids want because there's not enough here. I feel like now that I'm an adult, there's fucking plenty kind of going on. Like, I don't need to deal with that shit. Or, I don't need a whole nother realm or world. And I still like the fantasy world. But for sure, as a kid, that's why those books hit so hard, right? Because you're in another world and stuff's different and you have, I don't know, it's more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a part of me that wants it to be true. So, like, how were you hit by sort of the new evidence that's been coming out with UFOs, where now the Navy is releasing videos and there's all these videos coming out from the government, and you have David Fravor and these other people. So now it's not just crazy people like country bumpkins or whatever who like, oh, shucks, I saw a UFO, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. These are more reliable people where it doesn't seem like there's an alternative motive. Like, how is that hitting your ears now as an adult that this new information is coming out?
This kind of ties in with the whole fog analogy, and this might sound, I guess, a little cocky, but I don't care. I haven't really ever cared about the there's new evidence that these aliens are real, and check this out. I feel like that happens every 5 or 10 years, every decade. It used to be in a tabloid and only certain people would see it. And then it was on TV and now it's on the internet. And you're right, I guess there's more reputable sources, but I feel like you could say that for every time in the past. Oh, but this time, like, look at this. It's a military photo. I maybe sound arrogant because I don't look at that evidence, because for me, I'll believe it when I see it. It's almost the same for all of the conspiracy theories. Show it to me. Like, let me see the video of some kid with his iPhone that literally it's not edited and it's just he found an alien and it's proven, it's true. Great. I'll believe that one. And then when I see that one, maybe I'll open up to some of the other ones too. But I don't want to waste my time with all this new evidence and this and that always keeps happening. But at the same time, I feel like I'm the type of person who would accept it pretty quick. If there was like, holy shit, there is an alien. There's this stone cold proof, not like a little blurry image or not a few scientists, just a fucking video of the alien. I'll accept it pretty quick and I'll be like, cool, we're not alone in the universe. It's not going to shatter my reality. I'm not going to run in circles and scream. I'm going to be like, how do I deal with this alien, this new life, or this new world?
I'm coming from a very different place. A couple of things. So like you mentioned, the kid with an iPhone video, I think that's a lot less believable than someone from the Navy coming forward with official government footage. Because the kid with the iPhone video, like, I see such bullshit on, like, I saw this story where there's like this guy on TikTok who's pretending he's from the future. Like he got COVID-19 and then he fell asleep and then he woke up and it was 7 years later and everyone in the world is gone. And he's sending videos back in time 7 years on his TikTok. And there's all these people following them. Some of them are probably following it ironically, but I think a lot of people actually believe it, that this guy actually is time traveled because he has footage of all of these public places empty. And it's so obvious to me that it's not even worth investigating, that is manufactured. At home, you have basically the equivalent of like a Hollywood special effects department on your laptop computer where you can produce these incredible special effects. And so a kid coming out with a video, I don't believe it. And my initial reaction to this footage a few years ago, I was doing my VR show and there were people that were very excited about this and they're trying to get me hyped. The government's going to release some footage. This is going to be official footage. And I really didn't give a shit. And I think it was for the same reasons you're saying. Your hopes continually get dashed, right? Like there's always, oh, here's some new evidence. And it turns out to be bullshit. Like whenever there's new evidence of magic, it usually turns out that it's bullshit and the magic isn't real, right? Like that's the story of life. Like it's never turned out to be real. And so that was kind of my initial take on the UFOs. Now I've watched a couple of the videos and I've watched David Fravor and it's very strange. This is not necessarily proof of aliens. And it's also possible that the government is manufacturing this. Like maybe the alternative motive between these naval officers who come out or whoever else is like they're manufacturing a narrative to subvert something else. Like, who knows? There could be something else going on and they're trying to distract us from something else in the world. Like, this could also be another conspiracy. But here's the thing, man. It seems real. Like it seems like these are real ships doing weird things that scientists who study the footage cannot explain. We don't have the technology to do this. As far as we know, China doesn't and Russia doesn't. Like, it doesn't make sense to us. And so now I'm sort of living in this world where I'm not taking this as 100% true. I have a doubt in my mind. But I'm really playing with the idea that it could be real. And what does that mean? Because history tells me the explanation is going to be boring and a letdown, right? When this finally gets explained, it's going to be sort of like when you learn how a magic trick works.
Yeah.
Like, you see this amazing magic trick and it lights up your brain and you're really excited. And then they show you how it's done and it's immediately a letdown. Like, oh, it's just that? Like, such a simple explanation, and it's always a bummer. And it feels like that's what it has to be.
That's what it's going to be. Look at history, and I promise you that's what it's going to be.
I think you're too certain about this. I don't think we know what's going to happen yet with this.
I'll not debunk, but you said it in the last episode or one of these. It's easy to fool a smart person. It's easy to fool a scientist because they're so sure of everything. Then they see something and they're sure of it, and they're easily duped. Okay, so that's point number one. Point number two is, why is it always a speck on a screen that moves around? It's a speck and it goes around. Every time, this time, 10 years ago, 10 years before that, it's always the same. Like, if you made a movie about somebody that found this UFO footage, it would look like that. It would be like, oh, there it is, the speck in the sky. And that's what it looks like. And plus, lastly, why would this be what we find? If there was an alien here, I guess you're saying it could be an alien or foreign technology. Foreign technology is probably more reasonable in my head.
I think it could be a lot of things. Like, my gut tells me it's going to be a letdown, but I still think it's possible it could be a huge number of other explanations.
Okay, but what below an alien would be very exciting at all? Because it's either alien is the most exciting. Everything below that is, hey, China or Russia have a new drone that can go quicker and faster or something. Like, there's not much. No
one has a fucking drone that can break the sound barrier, go under the water. There's no exhaust. It's actively jamming the radar. Like, all of these things are actually happening. And so here's some of the explanations, right? And I still think the most likely thing is it's going to be a boring explanation that we don't yet know. But I think what's on the table is alien spacecraft. They're from somewhere far away, and they're keeping an eye on us. And they showed up when we started testing nukes, or when we dropped the first nukes. That's when they sort of showed up to keep tabs on us. And they're mostly in the ocean, hiding, and on the periphery, just watching us. And they go to our nuclear facilities whenever there's a problem, and they turn off the equipment to make sure that we don't blow ourselves up.
That sounds crazy.
That sounds crazy. I think that's possible. Because a lot of these things, by the way, have happened. Like, you got to look into some of this stuff. Like,
but I'm saying that you could say that the last times too. I mean, that sounds crazy because it sounds like the quintessential conspiracy theorist, and it's also too good, or it's like too on the nose of all the books and movies about aliens. Like those stereotypes of they saw us do a nuke, so they're spying on us, but they don't want to reveal themselves. It's just too on the nose. And my main, I guess, point is that all you say, check this out, look at this stuff. I won't, because all this time spent looking at it is going to be a waste of time. And if you look at history, I'm going to be right over and over and over and over again. If I'm wrong and it's an alien, what did you gain by spending 10 hours extra looking at it?
Well, okay, I don't spend 10 hours. Like, I've looked at the videos once, and I've watched the guy's interview once, and I don't spend a lot of time thinking about this, even as excited as I am right now. But the reason I'm excited is because even though I think the most likely explanation is boring, I think there is something in my mind, like a 10% chance that it's going to be one of these ridiculous other things. And if it is, this is the equivalent of like finding out that which religion is correct. right? An angel actually comes down and it speaks to a bunch of people and there's proof of God. Like at that point, everything goes out the window and you have to completely rethink what is your basis of reality. Like if it turns out to be aliens, for so long, I've sort of dismissed them, right? It's not something I need to think about. But what if they really are here? That completely changes our perspective on the world, on life, on everything.
How much so, though? Because you already know that that's very likely a case. That's why I'm saying my switch would be quick, because the universe is infinite. There's a billions of planets. So why now? Why here? I don't know. But
do you not think it's a big deal the moment when we find out one way or the other? I guess it'd be impossible to prove a negative. Like one possibility is that there are no aliens. It's only us in the entire universe. And we never find anyone else out there. I don't know that we would ever confirm that was true because, we'd have to literally explore the entire universe. So, but I think that a lot of people, most people probably believe that it's likely there is life somewhere else in the universe.
It won't find us. It won't get to us.
We don't have any absolute proof. The aliens haven't come and landed and visited us and gone to the world leaders and had a conversation on TV. Like none of this has happened. But like when that happens, when there is undeniable proof,
it changes nothing unless the aliens walking around changing our lives.
I think even if the alien, like let's say the aliens come down, they say hello, they're able to communicate with us, and there's absolute proof, everyone has to believe it. And then they say, look, we're just going to hang out in the outer rim of the solar system. You're not going to see us again. We're just going to keep an eye on you. And then they go away. And so the effect is that nothing actually changes. They don't change our world.
Yeah,
but now
exactly.
We just know that they exist. I think that knowing is a big difference. If you think of us as a global consciousness, like if, you're a human, but you're also part of a bigger society that's part of a global society. And if you think of our entire species as a hive mind, it's really interesting to not be alone. Like if you were alone forever and then one day you spoke to another person, that completely changes your worldview.
Well, what you're talking about also in that specific scenario is, to me, such a small fraction of a percentage of a chance that it's like thinking about something close to impossible. Because if they did come, just like they say it in the movie Signs or something, there's two options. They're trying to make contact with another world, or they're hostile. They've used up all their resources on their planet and they're trying to come to ours. They probably would invade our planet, or I guess maybe make contact. If they came, said, hello, we're checking it out, dude. We're over in solar system Zeta. And they come and they say hi. They're like, peace out. There's life on other planets. And they leave. Reality is nothing changed. You could sit there and think about Zarnax, the alien that comes by every 10 years. But what are we going to do differently besides maybe have Space Force Extreme to try and protect ourselves because we're humans and we believe, it's always about war and shit. So unless they take over or give us new technology, nothing changes. And if they do give us a new piece of, hey, this thing runs on nothing, then we're all having that. And that's the new world we live in. But why waste any time thinking about this stuff that's not going to happen?
Let me shift the idea, right? Let's think about religion. If one day there was proof of God, but for the rest of your life, it would make no difference. You would never speak to God. You just know that it's real, but you're never going to, it's not going to change anything in your life. God's not going to give you a helping hand. He's not going to give you some extra technology, but God's out there and you know it. Doesn't that change your perspective?
So similar analogy, there's an alien or there's a God or some other realm, like it could be anything. The fourth dimension.
But it's so far out there that you're never going to touch it. You're just aware of it, but you're never going to go there and it's not going to affect your life.
Then why?
Isn't that still interesting?
It's interesting, but why, how much time are you going to spend thinking about it? Just like how much time are you going to spend today, just thinking about stuff that's never that doesn't affect you, I guess.
Similarly, when we were talking about like the conspiracy thing where you can start making a bunch of connections, or if you're pontificating about religion, this unknowable thing, you could come up with a bunch of theories of explanations, but it's fundamentally unknowable. So what you're saying is, why bother having that conversation if you will never know the truth? Like, if talking about it or thinking about it is not taking you any closer to a change, why bother? And I think there is some wisdom in that, but I still think it's interesting. I think it's insane if they're fucking time traveling interdimensional aliens. Like, that's so fucking crazy that you might as well not think about it. But for me, there's a small percentage chance that that's on the table. Even if it's a small chance, it's crazy that it's even possible. And I guess you're saying you don't want to get your hopes up. There's no reason to think about something you're not going to know, and it's going to turn out to be something bullshit.
Yeah, that's just, even you saying it back is like, yep. It's like, if it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. As kids, I was more want to believe X-Files style, or, if there was, I would, crawl into a wardrobe and end up in another realm. That would fucking be awesome. And at some point, I kind of abandoned that for whatever, I guess, I don't know what it is, a more traditional. I just don't, I can't be bothered to waste time with that stuff. But you, I think, still have a little bit of that in you where you want to believe that there's something more than this current reality. All right, well, 2 hypotheticals, then this might help you, I don't know, solidify something. But if you were hanging out at a bar or having some coffee or something, or you're on an airplane and you sit by somebody and they turn to you and they start talking about this, like, oh, so did you know about whatever one it is, just they start going really deep into one of these things that at the end of the flight or at the end of your drink, there's going to be no conclusion. You're talking to somebody and he's just loving talking about this, let's say, this alien proof, and oh my God, and did you know this and this? Would you talk to that guy for very long if he was just like, dude, listen to this, and have you heard about this? Or would you be like, yeah, cool, adios?
Most people I find that are open-minded to this, they just become too open-minded, and there's just too much, like, talking about cryptids or Bigfoot, I just find so annoying. Like, there are kids at school who are into cryptids and they think Bigfoot's out there and all these mythological creatures, and you don't see them because they're hiding and they always can sense people, or if you ever find them, then they turn invisible. There's some fucking explanation to always explain how come we've never come across Bigfoot. If there was a fucking Bigfoot, we would have found it by now. Case closed, period.
Perfect that you said that, because how you're describing your Bigfoot feelings, it's the same to me with these alien stuff. Now, I agree you mentioned
the
some more
military
proof
has
and
never
stuff.
come out with blurry footage of Bigfoot with people in the military saying, I saw a Bigfoot and we caught it on radar and this military equipment. That's never fucking happened. The people that see Bigfoot are maniacs.
It's the same to me, because they saw, a speck of whatever, or they saw this thing, they can't put it together. It doesn't really matter to me. This military guy and this guy from the woods of Vermont are the same to me.
You're putting those people in the same box. Like, I definitely separate them.
They're people. They're humans, and humans make mistakes. And I guess that's a little different. I'm just trying to nail down the point to you that, to me, the UFO one is similar to Bigfoot or the whatever other ones there are.
Well, look, in both cases, you can't know for sure, right? Like, there is some chance that the guy who says he saw Bigfoot really did see Bigfoot, and Bigfoot really does turn invisible whenever someone gets their eyes on it. Who knows, right? That's some minuscule possibility. And the same with the military guy, right? That guy might also be full of shit for a number of reasons, or he might be telling the truth and the evidence might be real, and maybe that's a very small chance. I think that I'm just weighing these things very differently than you, right? Like, I think you're sort of putting them close to the same place, and I'm saying I see one of them as a crazy wackadoo where there's no reason to listen to them, and the other one I'm taking seriously. I'm not trusting them 100%, but I'm allowing myself to consider that they might be telling the truth and what they're saying might be real.
Okay.
Like, I'm seeing a big difference between these two people, and it seems like you're not.
In my head, these two are in the same compartmentalized box of, John, don't worry about it. In your head, there's a box with Sasquatch and whatnot. There's this other box that's maybe a little higher up, like maybe with the military leads and this. And it's weird for me because I'm pretty open-minded about lots of stuff. But I also, if somebody's talking to me something that's so out there, something goes off in my head where I'm like, honestly, I don't want to waste my time thinking about that. It just doesn't seem productive or I don't know, a use of time. Anyway, they're in two different boxes for us. I think that's the thing.
Yeah. Like those people that are similar to the Charlie Day meme of the maniacs looking at the conspiracy board, I also don't want to talk to them. Like, and maybe there's some small percentage chance that they're seeing reality, but I think it's so unlikely, and I'm just so uncomfortable around them. They annoy me so much that it's not worth investigating that person.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying this personally from like, I get so frustrated, and I'm sorry if you're one of these people, but like people that believe in ghosts, or I don't know, ghost is a big one. I think there's a lot of people. And again, like this is something, a very, very small percentage, less than single digits, point something percent chance that maybe there's fucking ghosts or something going on. I just happen to think it's very unlikely. But like a lot of people take it very seriously, and their explanations are always completely bullshit, right? It's like, oh, I had a feeling, or ooh, a thing made a noise. And it wasn't the house creaking. It was definitely a ghost, right? They're taking some strange anomaly in their environment, and they immediately are jumping to some fantastical, magical explanation and ignoring the boring answer. They don't want to live in the boring world, so they jump to the magic world.
It's the same. Isn't that the same? It's like the ghosts and the aliens are closer to me. Maybe aliens are a notch up because it's a big universe and that makes more sense. But spirits and ghosts could be in a more similar realm to me. That's why I'm like, no. I'll give you the other hypothetical I was thinking. And this is how I feel about ghosts too, because I used to be scared of them, and I hear something, I get a little scared. Or you watch a horror movie and you kind of just get in that zone. To me, it's like if I see a ghost and I'm awake and I'm aware and I see something, a ghost, and I know I'm not crazy or hallucinating, cool, then I'll believe it. But until that moment, what's the point? Just like with the alien, when he comes down to Earth,
you shouldn't believe it.
Why wouldn't you believe it?
How do you know when you're not hallucinating?
If I've never had one before, a hallucination, I'm up totally sober or whatever, it's not a dream, and a spirit comes and speaks to me, I'll be like, gotcha, spirits are real. Because I'm at least sane enough to know I've never really had I've never had any, like, hallucinations where a ghost or a bunny talks to me. So they're in a similar realm of, if an alien comes down and talks to me, got it, that's real. And if a ghost comes up and is alive or whatever,
we're in totally different places on this, because if I saw a ghost, I think I would assume there's something wrong with my senses, right? Like I'm having a problem in my mind. That would be my assumption. I would immediately jump to, oh, I'm having a stroke, I'm dying, like my brain is malfunctioning. Even if it was an alien.
Okay.
And with the alien thing, I think it's so weird what you're saying, because like even with the alien thing, I'm not saying it's aliens, right? Like I think it's less likely than the boring explanation, but I still think it's 100 times more likely than the evidence that we've had before. Like it's a significant jump.
Yeah, and this conversation is, like you just said, kind of two people talking about it from two different perspectives, because usually we're way more in agreement, and this is a more, not conflict, but it's definitely one where if you want to listen to a podcast of two people kind of get into these new facts and evidence and get excited, I'm being a downer. Or if you want to listen to the podcast of two people like me saying this is so stupid, then you're being the weird one, So we're kind of in a weird, where we're a little bit more further apart, I guess, or different.
Yeah, and I have not done a significant amount of research. Like I've only watched this one video that I'm telling you about, and so all of this is coming from me watching one, YouTube video.
I have an aversion to it. All the podcasts that I listen to, they've all brought it up. these ones that I listen to, these mainstream podcasts, and every time I skip the episode because I'm like, nope, not waste my time. So I do have an aversion to it.
Like, what I'm saying is I understand why you have that aversion. I also think this is different. I think this is a different, like, I think it's hard for you to see that this is different because you're recognizing a real pattern that we always say this is different and it always turns out to be bullshit. And now I'm telling you again, but this time it's different.
Exactly.
And so I understand why you wouldn't believe it, but I still think maybe it is true.
Well, we'll talk in 5 or 10 years or however long it takes this to be either
no,
proven
dude, we're
true.
going to talk in a few months because every few months there's new evidence. So like this is
awesome.
This is going to keep going. I want to say one more thing because I didn't mention this, but like I'm optimistic about the aliens. Like I'm not afraid of them. Like if this turns out to be true, if it turns out to be aliens, the most likely explanation is that they have actually been here for a while since we came up with the technology to destroy ourselves. And they're sort of like guardian angels. And they're just sitting there on the outer periphery, like the adult watching over a child. And they're just not doing anything. They're not trying to interfere. But every time we're just about to blow ourselves up, they come and they just make a little change, right? And if that were true, that really leaves me in an optimistic place for the future. Where it's like, oh, because sometimes it feels like humanity is about to end. Like you see everything that's happening in the world, all the crazy technology we have, manufacturing these new weapons and bioweapons and all this crazy stuff that could destroy us. Just because we haven't done a worldwide nuclear war yet doesn't mean that it's unlikely just because it hasn't happened yet. I think it's still on the table. But if there's aliens, if we have a guardian angel, then I don't know, that makes me feel safer about the future.
I'll agree. Because if these aliens that I'm watching here on the video, they're not hostile. If their big trick is I can hover over the ocean really quick and get captured on video, if these ones aren't hostile.
Yeah, I don't think it makes sense that there'd be aliens who wanted to steal our resources and they would fly all the way across the galaxy and come here to steal our gold. And if they were doing that, we wouldn't see them coming. And the moment they showed up, we'd all be dead. It would be over in an instant. Like if they have the technology to traverse the universe.
Yeah, exactly. It would
the war will not last more than 2 seconds.
They wouldn't be hiding and then showing up and hovering around. Yeah, they would come here and destroy us and be gone. So if they are, I'll agree with that. If these ones hovering around the clouds or whatever, yeah, I don't know what they're up to, but they're definitely not hostile. They're just there. I think aliens are definitely more likely than the ghosts or the Bigfoot, but I would still rather not talk about it. Maybe that's the reason I don't want to talk about it, because it's easier to talk about because it's within the reality, because like we said, the universe is big, life exists probably, so it's easier for people to talk about, but I still think it's a waste of time because I don't think in our lifetimes anything's going to change about it. So the less conversations I have about it, the better, because it's the less waste of my time.
Well, I don't get to talk to anyone about aliens. This is the only time I've got to talk about aliens ever. So that was exciting for me.
I enjoy it.
Well, thanks again. How do we end this? We don't have a good conclusion. I think we're working on the intro, and now we need a way to end it.
Yeah, we have no ending. It just kind of, we usually say, this is just for us. Is anyone actually, it doesn't matter really if anyone's listening or not.
God, do you think Bigfoot's listening? Or a ghost?
I mean, more likely aliens are, getting the signal and hearing it, and maybe they're getting a little pissed off.
No, dude, if you're listening and you're up there and you're, watching over us with kindness in your heart, like, I hope you can hear that. I understand, and I welcome you. And take me with you. Take me off of this godforsaken shithole.
And leave me alone. I'll chill out. You guys go do your own thing.